Imagine being a few meters beneath the surface of the ocean, in the dark, unexplored caves below the water. The climate is hostile, the pressure is intense, and the risks are unimaginable. Agnes Miloka was a brave cave researcher and technical diver who did over 1,100 dives, which is an amazing achievement. She bravely went into these depths, not knowing that her boundless spirit would carry her to a fate she could never have imagined. Agnes Miloka changed the underground world forever. She was one of the first people to cave dive and explore. Divers and explorers all over the world are still inspired by her constant passion, bravery, and groundbreaking work. What she left behind lives on, from the deep of Tank Cave to the unknown lands of Cockle-Biddy. She shows us that the human spirit has no limits. Agnes was a legend, but who is she, and what happened to her? She was born in Poland on December 23, 1981. She moved to Melbourne with her parents when she was very young, and she fell in love with underwater exploring right away. Her very first time diving was in 2002 when she did a few practice dives at Ningaloo Reef in Western Australia. She got to see a lot of marine life during these dives, and it was her very first time underwater that she had the thought, "This is what I want to do with my life." 2 weeks later, she signed up for a full open water course, and diving became the most important thing in her life from that point on. At the start of her trip, she was interested in the colorful reefs and fish that lived underwater. But as her love grew, so did her interests. Shipwrecks caught her attention, not only because they were beautiful, but also because they held untold stories and historical mysteries. She became interested in this subject as soon as she saw the wrecked J4 submarine in Victorian waters. She felt enchanted and excited all the way through this journey. Agnes said, "This was the best ever. I really want to do more wrecks. It was so cool. I really can't say enough positive things about it." Over the next few years, she went from being an enthusiastic wreck diver to a maritime archaeologist, getting her graduate diploma in maritime archaeology at Flinders University. Agnes became a deep diver because she wanted to find wrecks that were still untouched and pristine, that were hidden in the depths. To do this, she had to learn how to use complex tools and special gases. During these dangerous trips, she trusted the Optima rebreather to be with her. Agnes tried cave diving for the first time in 2004 when she went swimming with a group at ponds in Mount Gambier. This famous sinkhole, called Pix, had a healthy ecosystem full of fish, eels, turtles, and other aquatic animals that moved gracefully through its shallows. During one diving trip, Agnes was chasing a turtle at the surface of the water for fun when an unexpected adventure happened. She crossed the edge of the sinkhole without realizing it, and all of a sudden, the ocean bottom disappeared below her. A huge shaft fell 40 meters into the ground, leaving a dark shadow over her. Agnes had a strong desire to go down after seeing another diver come up from those deep depths. "I want to go down there." She started cave diving in 2005 because she couldn't hold back her joy any longer. From that point on, she fell in love with the strange world of caves. She loves discovering unknown paths that no one else has been before. In Florida's cave country, where she lived for a year, she learned how to lay lines to get around in the maze-like tunnels. She was hooked on the thrill of reaching places that had never been explored before. When Agnes went back to Florida, she laid kilometers of line through different cave systems. The most important thing she did was connect Peacock Spring to Baptizing Spring, which made the system longer by more than 2 miles. Along with her cave adventures in Florida, Agnes thought she was lucky to have seen the stunning beauty of caves in Australia, Mexico, and the Bahamas, among other places. She became an important figure in Australian cave exploration because of her trip. She reached the back end of the Cockle-Biddy Cave, which is the longest cave in the country, and set the record for the deepest female cave dive in Australian caves. Agnes had a special skill that made her stand out among cave divers. Because she was so small, she was able to get through restrictions that most man divers would have had a hard time with. She became known as a daredevil in the field because she was so good at working under tight conditions. She would sometimes even do something called no mounting, which meant taking her tanks off her side or back and letting them run behind her. By taking a different method, she was able to get around more and more restrictions, opening up uncharted areas that no one else could see. But Agnes did more than just travel. She used her camera to capture the essence of her trips. She shared her adventures with the world through pictures and videos she took while she was underwater. Agnes shared her deep love for diving with the world online. On her website, which she used as a canvas, she showed vivid pictures of her underwater experiences. Her interesting blog post gave readers a look into how much she loved what she did, with topics ranging from exploring airplane wrecks to the careful art of cave trips. On Tuesday, December 7, 2010, she told, "I have had my fair share of issues underwater, such as regulator and scooter failures several thousand feet into a cave, suit and BC inflation issues at depth. I've been lost, tangled in line, stuck in tight places. I've been stung by creatures and nibbled by moray eels. The list goes on and on and on." She added, "None of these have been what I would deem close calls. They have been minor bumps along the road and were easy enough to resolve. Generally speaking, as long as you don't panic, are well prepared, and have had decent training along the way, you should be able to manage the situation. I think the lessons are quite clear. Don't do stupid stuff. When you do stupid things, eventually, it seems your luck will run out." It wasn't enough for Agnes to just explore. She lived her life to the best. Agnes once stated, "I am not scared of dying. Anyone at any point can pass away, so you have to live your life as if tomorrow could be your last day. I love diving, I'm passionate about it, and I don't think anything will stop me from doing it. Unfortunately, there are risks in every extreme sport. There are dangers. To me, those risks are worth it because the rewards are worth it. You have to dive safely, but live as if every day is going to be your last." Agnes wrote a blog post about the tank cave on her website on Tuesday, November 30th, 2010. She said it was a hidden gem in South Australia's Mount Gambier area. Cave divers love exploring its 23,000-foot maze of passages, which has made it famous as one of Australia's longest caves. Her words were full of passion as she wrote, "Sometimes cave divers worry that Tank Cave will prove to be a huge disappointment after all the fuss leading up to the first dive. But even the Gold Line dives are quite exciting. Tank Cave is unlike any other in the Mount Gambier region. It is a real gem, and it is a joy to dive. The cave is stunning, and it is relatively shallow with a maximum depth around 65 feet. There is no flow to fight, and the water is crystal clear. You can't go wrong, really." In her emotional blog post, she wrote about how much she loved the cave, but little did she know that her life would take a heartbreaking turn. Because it was in that same tank cave that tragedy would happen. Agnes's day on February 27, 2011 began like any other. She was back at the tank cave in South Australia after an exciting trip that took her all the way back to Picaninny Ponds in 2004, where she first became interested in diving. She went on an adventure into the mysterious depths of Tank Cave with a group of 10 cave divers. It was clear what she had to do. She had to mark virgin territory, which in the world of cave diving means going into waters that no one had ever been in before. That morning, Agnes and her diving partner went into the tank cave, ready for another exciting journey. But something terrible went wrong. They went deeper until they came across a problem. A small opening that would become the site of the scariest moments of their lives. Agnes had already put down almost 1,000 feet of line on a previous trip to the interesting tank cave, which was a sign of the huge number of unexplored cave tunnels that were waiting to be explored. Agnes had a dream that one day this cave would be deeper than 33,000 feet, which would be a big deal in the world of cave diving. Agnes said that the tank cave looked like a spider web gone crazy. The walls and roof, to begin with, are quite soft and squishy, which means that large chunks of the roof rain down on you as you exhale and the visibility is quickly reduced to zero. Depending on your size, it might require you to take one tank off in order to pass through the initial restriction. On that terrible day, Andy Higgins, a fellow cave diver and the day's directing guide, opened the gate to the cave and set up the ladder so that the divers could get inside. The divers went in and out of the cave at different times throughout the morning. One always stayed on dry land near the mouth to the cave while the others went in and out. By noon, 9 of the 10 divers were out of the cave safely, leaving only Agnes behind. That day, Agnes planned to go on another trip through a very narrow passageway that no one else had ever been through. There are no more facts to add to the story at this point. Instead, guesses and speculations take over. One idea is that Agnes split up with her dive partner to get through this tricky part. Unfortunately, she was only able to get through the barrier and couldn't go any further. Agnes tried to turn around when she realized she was stuck, but she couldn't move her body. She tried to leave backwards, but the passageway had become clogged with dirt, making it impossible to see. Agnes finally ran out of air and drowned. Another possibility is that Agnes got separated from her friend in the main flooded tunnel while trying to find her way through a very low passage on the other side of a restriction, which is a small opening. To get through this narrow passage, she had to take out one of her cylinders and leave it as a backup. She then went on with just one cylinder, which is called no mounting. Unfortunately, when she got back, she got lost, possibly because of silt in the water, and couldn't find her way back to the backup cylinder. Sad to say, she ran out of gas and drowned. While Agnes was on the dive, her partner had been waiting calmly, but the minutes turned into hours. Things looked like they had gone very badly wrong. Agnes had gone into the pitch-black cave and was no longer seen. Her dive buddy finally had to come to the surface. After an hour and a half of the dive, Higgins, the guide in charge, called the water police. It took the rescuer all day and night to find Agnes. Late that night, her body was found in Tank Cave, but it took rescue teams a few days to get ready to properly get Agnes back. Experts didn't think it was possible to get Agnes's body back until dives recorded a video path to the barrier where her body was lying. They decided not to drill through about 50 feet of ground and instead relied on skilled divers who were sure they could find her. Working in pairs with a guideline from the entrance to the cave and carefully placed emergency tanks along the way, the retrieval took all day and went smoothly. A close friend of Agnes's, Dr. Richard Harris, was on the team that tried to make room for police dives to pull her body out of Tank Cave. About 16 feet away from Agnes's body was a backup cylinder that still had 176 bars of usable gas in it. The recovery operations took 4 days and included many dives, often with very low visibility, until the body could be safely taken out and given to the cops. Harris saw Agnes's body submerged in 65 feet of water, about 1,800 feet from the cave mouth on Wednesday afternoon. He says she wasn't trapped before she died. It looks like she has remained very calm right to the very last breath while she has been working to extricate herself, he adds. When you are in a very narrow part of a cave, visibility turns to zero very quickly. The Agnes Miloka Memorial Environmental Science Award helps underprivileged schools in the scientific areas in honor of Agnes's great contributions and lasting legacy. She also got the Exploration Award from the National Speleological Society Cave Diving Section, USA, after her death in May 2011. In Australia, several geological features were named after her. The Alliance starship AWS Miloka in Crimson Dark is one example of a cultural and sci-fi reference to her.